So, John, the Golden Globes was amazing with the monologue. It's the only thing I watch from the Golden Globes. Do you check on it every year?
No, I mean that the Oscars, all of that. I feel like it's a bit much, but I keep hearing about what Ricky Gervais has been saying, and like I haven't ever watched the whole thing. I've seen a couple little clips or like read a couple little quotes, but I haven't gotten the full context of it all. So what happened?
The memes are fantastic. So Ricky Gervais, like I'd seen clips of him doing this in his other shows at the Golden Globes, where he basically is like, "I don't care." Like it's just like the other times he's like, "It's my third time, I don't care. My fourth time, I don't care. They keep bringing me back, NBC." This time he's talking about it's his fifth time hosting. He's just like, "I don't care. I never cared." And he goes after them so well, and it's the memes of like he calls Joe Pesci Baby Yoda. He makes fun of Martin Scorsese's height. Then he makes he talks about like someone who didn't. There's a show on Netflix where it's about someone whose wife dies from cancer, and he's battling the idea to kill himself. And he's like, well, they renewed it for a season 2, so he didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. And then people start going, oh, and he's like, oh, I know he's your friend. Get over it.
Oh my gosh.
Calling out the Hollywood elite for being friends with him. And then I think he makes a Harvey Weinstein joke, not in his monologue, but further down the road in the show. And he also touches on some terrible things about cats. Some choice words for cats. He
the movie, not James the animal, Corden. Right?
The movie, and it kind of made some innuendo stuff about James Corden and Judi Dench. I don't want to say it on this podcast, but then he did. I will put it in context that after that he talked about telling people to F off when they accept their awards. Telling them like, thank you God, thank your agent, all this other stuff. And then he goes after Apple. Like there's an Apple exec because they've launched their streaming service.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, it's a company that has sweatshops in China, and people are like, oh, and he's like, oh, don't do this. And he says, all these platforms like Disney, Amazon, China, he's talking about their terrible practices. He's like, if ISIS had a streaming service, you would call your agent right now.
Oh my gosh. I mean, look, man, like he's not afraid to say these kind of things, and he never has been. So, for them to ask him to do it for the 5th time, I feel like they knew what they were getting into. They probably just wanted the free publicity for the Golden Globes.
Yeah, because the Golden Globes has that effect of being just different from the Oscars, where it's just like, oh, sit on the couch and get roasted by your host. It just feels, I like it. I just like it. They should be made fun of.
He's not afraid to say anything at this point, and I need to go back and check it all out, because it sounds like I don't know if he's necessarily funny, but I'm definitely curious as to what exactly he was saying.
Yeah, it was...
Because, like, I did see Adam Driver's face after, like, a meme of his face as compared to a bunch of other people, and, like, how, like, him as a veteran, like, he gets this kind of dark humor, and everybody else just was not having it at all.
I see you get the libertarian memes. Do you see the other person they were comparing it to?
Oh, was it Tom Hanks?
It was Tom Hanks.
Ah, glorious.
America's dad. The America's dad that won't drug and rape you.
Oh, so good.
It's lovely. He made references to Bill Cosby in 2016 also, so he really doesn't care.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then what I got back from it is that the memes of Tom Hanks, the one that I saw was a Star Wars meme today, where it's talking about the prequels. And it's Qui-Gon listening. He's like, the boy must be trained. And then it cuts to Anakin killing younglings. And then it just shows Tom Hanks' face like, ooh.
So many good memes from this.
Yeah, you should check it out. Welcome, everyone, to the Sum It Up Podcast. This is where we talk about movies, shows, games, and whatever the heck we want. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and YouTube. I'm joined by my good friend John. I'm Chris, and we are your co-hosts for the day. John, how you doing?
Look, man, I can tell you definitively I'm doing better than Scott Derrickson.
You're just saying that because when we were writing the script, I couldn't say his name. Thank you for catching me now. I want him to be like Eric Dickerson.
No.
But it's Scott Derrickson. Yeah, we have a couple of stories for everyone today. We have about Doctor Strange with Scott Dickerson. Derrickson. Dang it.
I tried to help you, man. Come on.
You tried to help me, and I still did not stick the landing. I probably broke my leg coming down after the pole vault. It's over. The career is done. And I'm only 17 in this picture. No, I'm just kidding. Because that's how old they are when they win those awards. This story about Scott Derrickson leaving.
There it is.
leaving Doctor Strange, and then the Birds of Prey trailer. So it'll be a pretty comic booky show today.
It usually is. Feels like it, at least.
I need a palate cleanser of ginger after all the Star Wars stuff we've talked. So let's do it.
Well, lucky for you, I am plenty ginger enough. Oh, it's funny because I'm a redhead. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
These
not
are the
palate
jokes.
cleanser I was going for, but I appreciate it.
So anyways, I just heard about this today, and I really wanted to talk about it because I want to get your thoughts on some stuff. So Scott Derrickson, the director of the first Doctor Strange movie and the second one up until today, has left the project because of creative differences, evidently, with Marvel, with Kevin Feige, I think with the overall direction that they wanted to take this movie in. He is, however, going to stay on as an executive producer, but we have no idea if the delay of finding a new director is going to affect the July 21 release date. July 2021, not July 21st. But Derrickson has always said, especially after the first movie came out, he wanted the sequel to be a true horror film. He's a horror guy himself, and so he wanted to incorporate that. And I think Doctor Strange has the capability to, from the comics especially, really propel itself in the horror genre. You're dealing with a lot of mind-trippy stuff, the demon aspect of it all, the other dimensions that are coming to play, Nightmare as a villain that he said he wanted to bring in. So you have basically everything teed up to be a really good horror film, and I think Derrickson would have set the tone for it really, really well in the MCU. But I think he was trying to push the envelope a little too far for Kevin Feige's taste. And in interviews, Feige has repeatedly come out and said that basically he's walked back what Derrickson has been saying. He said that Doctor Strange 2 is a big MCU film with scary sequences, but he's never called it a horror film.
Because I don't want to bring a nightlight to my showing or my theater because it's so horrific.
Yeah, and
I'm not. You know me. I'm not a fan of horror films. I'm glad they made this change.
And honestly, I'm not a big fan of horror either, but I'm a fan of good storytelling, and when that genre really lends itself to the type of story they want to tell in this type of context, I think it would have been really interesting, if anything else. I want to see them push the envelope more than what they've been currently doing up until Endgame. I think they've bought enough goodwill from the fans. I think they've told a lot of really good stories. I think now going into this next step in the storytelling career that they've built, I think now is the time to start really taking risks and trying new things that they haven't done up until now. So to see them walk back someone who's been trying that, I think is a little disappointing to me, at least. It if nothing else, it says more about the overall direction that they have for the MCU. And I think Derrickson has bought himself a lot of respect from the fandom and from Marvel as a whole. I think that he's earned a lot of the ability to tell a good story and the trust. That's what word I was looking for. Sorry. He's earned a lot of trust from Marvel to be able to tell these types of stories. Exactly.
But not that kind of trust, but
yes. I don't know, man. I'm disappointed. I I'm curious to see who they're going to get, and if it's going to be somebody that's just a yes man, or if they're going to, I don't know, maybe put another, like, inject a little bit more flavor into this story. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all this?
As far as my thoughts about this is something I'm not surprised by with Kevin Feige and his decision to be like, well, we have some creative differences. Hey, in this universe, there's a plan. And guess what? They don't want horror film. They don't want that. They don't want that horror Blumhouse type of feel with the movie, and I appreciate that. Now, there being some horror elements and suspense, I can get down with that, but I don't want my heart to feel like it's about to jump out of my body. So I'm very happy with this decision personally. I do, however, get why people are upset because they're not used to the cookie cutter formula. MCU, they're bored of it, you know? If I serve you chocolate chip cookies for the rest of your life, and at some point you're going to be like, all right, I'm getting diabetes. I'm done with this. Please stop. It's just a result of that. That's what I'm thinking about this. And I pose the question, and, you know, I'll give my idea of, like, you know, as a good replacement for a director in this movie, you know, I would ask you, who do you think could do it? And, give you some context for what I think. I really do think that I would like to see someone like James Gunn do this movie, just because he has a little bit of background already doing it with Brightburn, even though Brightburn was produced by him, but Brightburn really didn't take off in the mass media, or not the mass media, but the mass market and audiences. Yeah. And I think Kevin Feige can tone it to a good spot, because there are a lot of sequences in that movie that are frightening, but in a good way. Yeah. And while he didn't direct it, he did produce it.
I don't think they're going to get James Gunn back, because he's working on the Suicide Squad. Then he's got Guardians of the Galaxy 3 next. So he won't be able to be brought back in just because of his schedule. But I do have a name for you, and I'm curious to see what you think. It's someone who has a lot of experience with horror, but also experience with comic book movies. What do you think about Sam Raimi?
I had a feeling in the back of my head that you would say Sam Raimi, but the Sam Raimi horror films are, what is it, The Evil Dead? Like, those movies with Bruce Campbell are so, like, gory and zany, and they it has the camera feel where, like, if he accidentally chops off, like, his own fingers or something like that, the camera zooms in and his eyes are wide open and he's screaming. It's so jarring. Which he actually recently said he wanted to make another Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell, and I was like, that's special. So let him do it.
So this is why I suggest his name, because of the horror films that he's done. I mean, we know about The Evil Dead, but he's also putting out The Grudge that's coming out this year. That reboot, basically. He did put out Don't Breathe, which I thought was a really creative premise, and I think it did pretty well. And I'm just looking through his filmography here.
Don't Breathe. They did a better job with it with A Quiet Place, but, you know, Don't Breathe is also a good iteration of the horror genre of, like, hey, if you don't make any movements, you won't die. Or if you don't make any sound, you won't die. So I think that's pretty... I think if I can remember, I think he was the first one to do it as far as a mass audience type of introduction to that genre.
Yeah.
That's now got Quiet Place a part 2.
Yes.
Yeah,
which looks incredible. But I mean, I think his original vision of what Spider-Man was back in the day, I think would have been really interesting. So I think he's got a lot of good stories, and he's familiar enough with comics as a whole to know the source material, to respect it, but also put a good modern spin on it. So I think, you need somebody that's going to be able to be confident on day one when they step in with a script that's already together, because they're going to start production, or they're planned to at least start production in May of this year. So you need somebody that's confident right off the bat, who doesn't have much of a learning curve going into everything. Yeah. I mean, the only other name that I can think of, but I don't know that he's available to do something like this, or if Marvel could even get him, would be Jordan Peele. I think
Ooh.
obviously with
Which he's
Get
putting
Out,
out a movie called Antebellum, which the trailers for that are frightening, but I think it's going to be another hit for him.
yeah, I mean, I think he's got the capability to be a really good storyteller in the MCU. But again, I don't know if he's got the time to do it, to commit to this project for the next year.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, I think Sam Raimi would be my top pick to replace Scott Derrickson.
I really do like your pick. I think it's a good pick. But do you think, like, with the choices that they made for this movie and to part ways with Scott Derrickson,
There it is.
what do you think it means for these types of movies in the MCU?
It makes me wonder if they're even willing to take any risks with the MCU. And I hope that with projects that are coming out on Disney Plus, I hope that they're able to maybe start to push the envelope more on those types of platforms, see how the general public reacts to that, and then maybe take a step forward to the greater theatrical experience. I mean, again, like I wish they would do more creatively to kind of expand on what they've already done. I mean, because at a certain point, if you're not willing to try new things and take risks, you're just going to keep rehashing the same thing over and over again. And I think they're getting dangerously close to that right now. So if they're not willing to try new things, then they're going to lose a lot of fans real quick.
You think they're getting close to the diabetes cookie analogy?
I think they're getting full. I think they're getting real close to diabetes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I think this is a good move. Like I said, I liked this move, and I'm fine with them making this creative difference of saying, like, or not creative difference, but like, hey, we're gonna stick to the chocolate chip cookie. I'm fine with that, and I think it's also a result of like, hey, they don't want to deviate from their model, and the reference I'll give is Disney of the 2000s, when they're like, you don't need a princess. We could just make a movie with whoever. Let's make a story about the city of Atlantis and cast Michael J. Fox as this young whippersnapper who's really smart. No one really saw that movie. Treasure Planet also, no one really saw that movie. Didn't do too well. There's no princesses in them. Brother Bear as well. There are plenty of movies where they're like, we're going to do something different. And they're like, hey, we're going to scale it back. Let's do Princess and the Frog, Frozen, Brave is another movie where they try and save face. And I also Brightburn that James Gunn did, well, I did say like he has experience doing that type of genre. And he didn't direct it, but it really didn't get to the greater audience love. Maybe that's perhaps a result of marketing, even though I saw a bunch of trailers for it. Maybe it wasn't saying like, hey, Brightburn is like evil Superman. No one came out and said it in the marketing trailers, so the general audience didn't really feel that. But for those who deep dived into it, they figured out like, oh, that's actually kind of cool concept. So I just see it as Disney trying to minimize a flop.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. Like they want to keep. I mean, so okay, let me back up. What I will agree that they're doing right is what Kathleen Kennedy should have done with Star Wars and having a firm creative hand in what types of projects are being done. And I respect that, at least, that they're not willing, or that they're willing to say, hey, this doesn't fit with what we're trying to do. You either scale back or we'll find someone else that will. So in that respect, I understand and respect what they're doing. I just wish that it had not happened on this project in particular, with someone who so firmly, I think, understands the material and has done such a good job of introducing Doctor Strange to the general public. Which, again, that disappoints me. That upsets me a little bit. But in thinking about it a little bit more and in talking about it with you, I respect Feige, at least, for making the decision just based on everything that could have gone wrong if they had not done it.
Yeah, like I said, they have a plan.
Yeah,
as compared to the other thing. But as compared to Star Wars,
yes,
and trust me, they don't make this decision often at a Marvel.
Yeah,
whereas at Disney they do it all the time, or not at Disney, at a Lucasfilm.
Yes. Yeah, I think the last time they've done a rewrite this big on a Marvel project was probably post Hulk when they replaced Edward Norton because of creative differences. At least that's the first thing that's coming to mind. Um,
I would say Guardians 3, but then they had to backtrack it.
yeah, but that wasn't because of
Well,
creative differences. That was just because of tweets from years ago that came out. That,
as oh, you're saying like as far as creative differences strictly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I can't think of anything that comes to mind. Do you think we'll eventually get there with like a kind? Do you see a movie like this, a horror genre type of comic book movie in the Disney sphere? Do you see that coming like in the form of a movie? Do you think they're going to make that decision, or do you think they'll only make the risk with like Disney Plus or a smaller project?
Well, so I think they're going to have to do it eventually, and I think, and we'll talk about this in a future video a little bit more in depth, and I'll just kind of lightly touch on it. But I think the success of the New Mutants movie that's coming out will kind of determine whether or not Disney feels that the general public is ready for a horror comic book movie. And I think people are probably, the people that at least see it will probably respond well to that movie. So I hope that that's kind of a stepping stone to get us in the right direction. And I think that the longer we wait, the more other studios are going to push their boundaries and try new things. So Marvel's going to have to catch up at a certain point, or they're going to fall behind, say, somebody like DC, who's already trying new things post Justice League because they have to. Uh, but a great example of that, I feel like, is we're going to talk about the Birds of Prey trailer that just came out. I love the aesthetic of this movie. I love like the change of feel that they're going for with this, because it's so far removed from what we got with any other Justice League character property, even from the last Suicide Squad movie. It seems fun. It seems like a trip, honestly, just watching the trailer, and I think it's going to be a really interesting movie, if nothing else, just from a watching perspective.
Yeah, as a watching perspective, I understand where you're coming for with Birds of Prey trailer. I don't think Disney will ever attempt a property like this unless it is in the form of a Disney Plus film. And going back to New Mutants, I think the only reason they're releasing that is because the project was basically finished. Like the project was basically done, or they had to do a little bit extra, which is why they're marketing it now. I don't think that product is developed by Disney solely. I think it's just a thing like, well, we have this movie that's doing nothing in our arsenal. We might as well just put it out there and say like, hey, for you horror fans, take it. But it's not going to be part of the MCU saga films, and I don't think we're ever going to get that for a very, very long time. I don't see it anywhere in the near future. On Disney Plus, yes, but they really don't want to remember the 2000s.
Yeah.
Unlike these DC EU, these Warner Brothers execs are just like taking lines of coke and be like, let's do it. You want to make a wild movie about Harley Quinn and not connect it to anything? Let's do it. And I think that's what we're getting out of this Birds of Prey trailer that was released.
Yeah, it's definitely much more of a Joel Schumacher Batman vibe than I think anybody was expecting. Which I look, man, like when that Batman movie came out, I was not a fan. I still am not really a fan of that feel, but I like the influence that it had on this movie, and I think we needed that to get to this point. I mean, just everything about what this is kind of like introducing in this trailer. Like, I love that we finally get to see Black Mask with his actual Black Mask on. Not that
Ewan McGregor.
Oh god, like, not that I didn't think he wasn't going to put it on eventually, but like seeing him in his full like comic book character glory is just awesome. Bruce the hyena is now canon. There used to be, like, in every other iteration of Harley Quinn, there were two. They were called Bud and Lou, but this one there's only one hyena, and she named it Bruce after Bruce Wayne, which is just perfect.
Yeah, it's funny. I like that. I like that it's a hyena.
Yes. and I love that we we got to hear it laugh too. That there's that moment when they're in that shootout and Harley Quinn is behind this like a pallet of cocaine basically, and you can
Yep.
see it flying around and she breathes it all in, and then her eyes just get real wide and she jumps out and just starts beating everybody up. Like that's basically her like getting coked up superpowers, which it's just everything about this, like it doesn't seem like it should make sense on paper, but it's so fun to watch.
I feel very. I think this is where you have it. You and I have a difference in opinion. Where yes, I will admit it does look exciting, but it's like I'm confused by it though, John. I don't, I don't know what to think of this. Like it's so weird.
I mean,
It's like it just. I look at it as the extension of Warner Brothers and their feel for movies, and going back to the Joel Schumacher type of vibe, like, you know, granted it is kind of weird and zany, and this isn't supposed to be part of any of the DC universe. It's just one of those things where I don't, even though it has an identity of being like high octane, I I I still don't know. Maybe this is something completely new that we've never seen. I still don't know how to categorize. I still don't know how to feel about it.
well, see, that's the hard thing about what they're doing. So I was reading interviews about this, and they've come out and said that like there is the connection between her and Joker, which this picks up shortly after the events of Suicide Squad when she breaks up with Joker off screen, and this is her kind of moving on from that. So in that way, it's tied together to the DC EU as a whole. But other than that, this is basically its own standalone story where I'm sure that there's a potential for it to branch out from here, but it's not connected to directly to Justice League. It's not connected to the new Batman movie. It's not connected to Joker. It's its own thing. So they're like, I like the properties that they're putting out now, but they're creating 3 or 4 different cinematic universes where I think the general public is starting to catch up with comic book fans in that they can accept more than one type of continuity, but they're starting to reach a little bit now.
Yeah, I would say probably not with that. I believe that most moviegoers want it to be one universe. But do you think it's because they're learning their lesson with Justice League and just saying like, hey, everyone, do what you want, have fun with it, like the Aquaman movie, Shazam. I mean, Joker is one of those testaments where they're kind of like Joker, although not connected to the DCEU. The Aquaman and Shazam's movies are very loosely connected to DCU in the way that there's no like footprint for later. I think this is, as you would say, it's a result of the Warner Brothers trying to fix their screw up with Zack Snyder and the conformity of those movies or the general feel of those movies.
Yeah, like that's what I think that they've taken away as a lesson is that like the problem was Zack Snyder came in with such a dark vision for what the Justice League was, and I think in its own way it was an interesting take, and I think that they could have gone a better direction with it. But I think that what they're trying to do now with all of these characters is give them their own fingerprint, their own aesthetic as a movie and as a property, where Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, Harley Quinn now, they all have their own unique identity. And I think that's so much more similar to the comics as a whole than what Marvel has been doing, where with the MCU, there is one continuity, one feel where there's a little bit of flavor in there with depending on the director, but basically you can copy and paste any character into each movie and it works because visually they're all very similar. But
I like my diabetes.
Exactly. Diabetes is great. But with the DCEU now, I think what they're trying to do is go more of a comic booky route where, I mean, in the comics, you had a Batman comic and that had its own aesthetic. And then you had a Superman comic, which had its own visuals and look. And the interesting thing was eventually when they created these team up events, it brought all of these unique personalities together that then clashed and molded together to create something new. And I think what they're I think they're starting to go in that direction where they realize they don't have to have the same continuity basically between each property. Like they can all be connected, but tell a story that's unique to the personality of that character. Like the Flash is supposed to be a hopeful character. It's not going to be the same as the Snyder Batman, where there's this dark and grittiness to it. It's not meant to be the same. They're supposed to be unique and different in their own way. And then when they are brought together, they learn from each other and they're affected by each other and they grow as characters into their own future storylines. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm hopeful for the future of the DCEU. And if this is the track that they're putting themselves on, I think that it has the potential to be really beneficial down the road.
And you saying that you think it's going to be beneficial. So you think this is an interesting deviation from the typical comic book genre, or for you though, do you think it's a good deviation that's interesting, or do you think that we aren't ready for this weird, wacky interpretation as far as Birds of Prey?
I mean, I think people are starting to get superhero fatigue, and if directors and if studios don't try new things, it's going to burn out audience members really quick. Just because there's so many studios now that are trying to dip their foot in this type of material, and so you have all of these superpowered. All the superpowered content coming at you. Like The Boys, I thought was a great new take on that genre that I think refreshed it in a lot of good ways. And so if DC doesn't start trying new things with how they present this material and really starting to make their own footprint unique, it's just going to mold together with everything else that's out there, and it's not going to be memorable. It's not going to be good. People are going to not show up as much to go see it because it's just the same thing rehashed. Whether or not this movie is a success or not, I think is less important than the fact that they're trying it. And it looks like they're doing it with good writing, with good characters, with good directors.
No, hold on. Wait, yet to be seen with this movie.
Yet to be seen, but I think Wonder Woman 1984 looks great. I think Patty Jenkins is great with the property. I think James Wan has been great with Aquaman and his vision of that character. I think Shazam, the casting of that character and the portrayal was on point, I think, with that comic. So I think by giving every character their own identity and uniqueness, I think it's really going to pay off dividends down the road for them. And so, I mean, it's a weird movie. The Birds of Prey movie looks like it's going to be super weird. But if nothing else, I'm interested, and I'm curious about the new direction they've put out.
My thing with that is that even though I know you're hopeful and you're liking this direction, as far as this movie is like, I don't know. I don't know if we are ready for it. This doesn't look. The Birds of Prey trailer, the Birds of Prey movie. Am I interested in it? Maybe. I still don't know what to think of it because there are parts of this trailer that I really like, but DC has made me very cautious with seeing its films. And, people are like, oh, the Suicide Squad is going to be different from the DC movies. And people are like, oh, it's very different, but not maybe in the best light. I see that the Aquaman properties and Wonder Woman, Shazam, great movies. And all of their trailers had me. This was a good trailer, but something about it has me cautious. It's not that it's an all women's, a big women's cast. You have Ewan McGregor, but then you have a bunch of ladies in Harley Quinn's crew. And what I worry about is when Hollywood does these all women casts, it's not to take anything away from their abilities as actresses, that I believe, but these studios do these money grab type of films with the terrible script. And it's really at the expense of all these talented people's careers. It's a bump in the road for these ladies. And I don't think it's necessarily fair. So I hope Warner Brothers didn't take this movie in that direction because I will be very upset. because Patty Jenkins and what she's made is fantastic. And I think that is where people should be looking to talent. And I hope they didn't Ghostbuster this up. And once again, I don't think it's anything bad about the all-women's cast, but I think it's these execs who think just because they put a bunch of women in front of it and they're just like, it's going to make money. It's not fair to these ladies, you know? They're great actresses. Give them something compelling. And I don't want to see it where there's people out there, these trolls on the internet who's like, all women casts are terrible and all this stuff. I don't want that. Because Margot Robbie is talented. These other ladies have talent. And, you know, I worry with these type of movies. And I hope Warner Brothers didn't take it in this direction, because I am very unsure looking at this movie. And it's just the whole vibe and cautiousness with DC and after Ghostbusters, definitely.
Well, yeah, and I think that brings up a good point of striving for authentic diversity, where when you think about Endgame and you have that one scene where, like, they've always talked about doing an A-Force movie, which is an all-female led Avengers cast, basically, and you have that one scene where Captain Marvel has the gauntlet and all of the women basically in the MCU line up behind her. That doesn't feel like authentic diversity. That just feels like a shoehorned in reference to make somebody smile. But I think when you have something like a property like this, with the Birds of Prey movie, where it's a legitimate property from the comics that has a great history in its own way, and you have a character like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, that post Suicide Squad, she's kind of moving in her own unique direction, and then you have all these characters around her that they've put in similar situations that are all striving for their own identities, and it's them coming together to create something new. Just in reading about it and seeing the trailers, it feels like it's done, from what I can see at least, in a very authentic way that doesn't feel like a cash grab, like you said. And I would hope that these characters or these actors wouldn't sign on if they felt like that was the case, because it feels like Margot Robbie's getting a lot of creative control in what she does as Harley Quinn, and I think that she would want to portray the character in a really empowering way, like I think this movie is doing. So
you could say that, you know, and I just had this pop in my head. I'm sure someone else who's way smarter than me said it online, but it would be wonderful to see her be the Ryan Reynolds of the DC universe, where she owns this persona that propels like the raunchiness and grittiness of the comic book genre into the forefront. That would be great for DC, and to give her creative control, if that's something she's passionate about, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, again, I am being very hopeful about this. It looks like it's going to be good.
You are. I'm being cautious. Stay close to the ground with me, friend.
Well, we have another month to wait before this comes out, so we'll see in a month who was right and who was Chris.
Oh. I was ultimately hoping you would say who was wrong.
Nope.
So I'd be like, I feel like the slight, like I give it to me. You know, I'm putting this stuff out there to protect you, John.
I don't want to be protected. I'm ready to be hurt again.
Oh man, I do not want to be hurt by these movies. But do you think with like everything that they're doing though with Margot Robbie and the characters being their own universe, do you think they're going to continue to do that, or do you think they're going to try and work her into the other DC properties besides Suicide Squad, potentially just being like the cameo, or throwing her in there like, oh look, it's Harley Quinn? Are we gonna see Harley Quinn eventually into the Robert Pattinson Batman?
I mean, probably not in that movie. I'm still waiting to see how they're gonna work that into the rest of the continuity. But I mean, I kind of see her character as I do Deadpool now that Marvel owns all the mutant properties. I think she is probably going to be most successful when she is on her own and can have her own unique aesthetic for a movie.
I agree with you.
With the people around her. But I hope that they are able to make authentic cameos with other characters to then connect it in a interesting and unique way. Like I don't, what I don't want to have happened is her just to be shoehorned in as a cash grab to Aquaman, where it doesn't feel authentic. It's not really, doesn't make sense in any way. But they have like it would feel like a computer made the decision of, oh, Jason Momoa, Margot Robbie, put them together. Individually, they're very successful. So when you put them together, of course they'll be more successful. It just needs to be done in a unique and creative way. But I think there are definitely ways to do it. It's just doing it right.
Yeah, I guess you could call that the sort of Marvel-esque way, or you could say that's actually the way Fox used to do it, where they have like these universes. It's just like, oh hey, look, small cameo over here, nothing too big. But Marvel has done it too. But as far as like your take on it with that, and that maybe in their own universes she's going to succeed more, I would agree with that. I definitely don't want it to be like a crossover event with like, you know, Aquaman or Wonder Woman, but it doesn't feel authentic. But I don't think that's going to happen, John. You touched on it, and it definitely explains the executives at Warner Brothers, where I think this is a great choice creatively for comic book movies as far as to have your own little universe and thing. I think DC's doing it right, but it's not good for the general audience. And what I mean for their bottom line, I think this is bad because, as you said, they could have like 4 universes in the DC. And that's like, it's going to confuse someone who's a casual and be like, isn't this supposed to be connected to this? I don't understand the thinking behind DC continually not having a unified plan. And you mentioned flashpoints. You mentioned flashpoints off the air, but about, you know, in the future they're going to do it. But I got no news of this. I'm not looking this stuff up as far as that. As a filthy casual, like, I'm not going to know. Like, it just feels like these execs are taking a bunch of coke to figure out. And I really want, like, the Steve Jobs ghost of business past to slap all of these execs at Warner Brothers and tell them how stupid they are. That they need to have, like, a universe, or distinctly come out and say, like, hey, this movie with the Birds of Prey, it's not connected to Suicide Squad. Because before last week, I thought it was connected to Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
What are they doing, John? What are they doing? They need to be slapped by the Steve Jobs ghost. Because the DC at first, I thought it was being fixed. And they're making this stuff. Like, Joker was so good. They're in the standalones. And then I don't know what's going on going forward. Like, well, you know, we have a capacity to bring her in anything. I don't know. It just seems like a free-for-all, John. I don't know what to think of it.
I don't know, man. Like, I want them just to focus on telling good stories and make good movies. And then if they want to do a giant crossover property later down the road, find a way to authentically get to that point. But if I could have 13 different DC universes right now. And if I had 13 great DC movies that I enjoyed watching repeatedly, I would still be happy, and I wouldn't care if they were connected or not.
You know, we talk about them doing a Flashpoint in the future, though. I'm confused. Do you want things to exist in their own universe? Do you want to bring it all together? Like, it just, and this stuff isn't like super announced. It's like, hey, I did this interview with an exec over here at Warner Brothers who's overseeing the DC universe. And he's vice president with 6 other vice presidents. I don't know what the structure is. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem as unified as Marvel. And I want my cookie. This seems like a bagel with gator meat on it, spread with some, I don't know, wasabi. It just all these great things by themselves, but then you put it all together, it's weird. I don't know.
I feel like you made that reference
stupid.
because you're living in Florida now and you went to an Asian bar last night, but I could be wrong.
You know, that is partly it. I do things off recent memory, but have not had gator in recent months, so not at that point yet.
That's fair.
But eventually.
Well,
but I want to know, John.
Yeah?
What are you watching?
Well, so I finished The Witcher a couple days ago, and initially wasn't super into it. It took me probably halfway through the season to even start getting interested. But by the end, if anybody else has seen it, you understand what I mean by the final episode kind of gives you a lot of clarity as far as where all the characters are and when all the characters are. So I really want to go back and rewatch that series from the beginning, knowing what I do now. It was Henry Cavill was great as Geralt, and it was a really interesting story, I feel like, in a lot of ways. And now that I have a better perspective of what they're doing with the property, I think I'll enjoy it more the second time around. So if you have Netflix and you haven't checked out The Witcher yet, I definitely would recommend it, knowing that you learn a lot about the characters as you go forward and when they all are. So really pay attention to the timelines. But it was I really enjoyed it, and I'm ready for season 2, hopefully in the next year.
Wow. Did you know that was a video game property?
And also a book.
Video game property.
And I read things, Chris.
Yeah, if you haven't played, if anyone in your audience hasn't played the games, go play them, or read the book if you so desire.
Which is what the show is based on.
You have choices.
Yes.
You have choices.
Yes. So Chris, what are you watching?
So I watched 1917 this morning, and I saw Knives Out a few days ago, and wow, the movies that have been put out are fantastic. 1917 really affected me coming out of the theater today. I was definitely like shook with emotion. It was very, very good. A lot of reviews have been positive of it. I wish it got a much better release as far as like a lot more fanfare to it, because it's something that people should watch, and a really great story that I think people will find endearing to the human spirit. And then Knives Out was like, Rian Johnson's a great director. Give that man a Star Wars.
Oh,
yeah, I know, right?
too soon, Chris.
Too soon. No, Knives Out was fantastic. I really loved it. Twists and turns. It is a murder mystery, so you know you're going to see those twists and turns. And I loved how it was shot. I loved the comedy of it. It was a very good film, and I enjoyed it the whole way. And Daniel Craig, wow. Daniel Craig was great. But also the actress who they focused on was... and I won't tell you who they're going to focus on. She did a fantastic job. Chris Evans was really good. Everyone in their roles was really good. Jamie Lee Curtis was great. The character she played, that is just a really great acting ensemble from that. And then there is one other thing I've been paying attention to as far as media. I've been listening to a radio show called the Dan Le Batard Show. People in South Florida would know it. It's sports radio, and they talk about sports maybe 20% of the time, and the conversations they get to are fantastic, and I love it. If anybody likes sports radio but just likes a good conversation, please check it out, because I have been dying laughing. And I had taken a trip to Tennessee. I had to go up to Tennessee from Florida, like a 11-hour drive. I had to go up to get something, and it was a to and back trip real quick. It wasn't quick. It was like 22 hours on the road. Jeez. And I listened to that radio show the whole time, and I was in tears. It was so funny.
Yeah, I'm not really a sporter or a sportist.
Yeah,
I don't sports, but you've shown me a couple clips of that, and I've really enjoyed the conversations too.
So, they're yelling at each other like a family, and it's so great. And the fact that if someone says something stupid, they go into a penalty box like in hockey. I love it. And if that's gonna happen, like, I'm gonna get sent to the penalty box so much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
you need to. Like, if anybody else is to look at this radio show, there's this, you're kind of like a very mellow Dan Le Batard, to where I would be the Stugatz of everything. But I've got like both of their personalities on me. It's really funny stuff. But yeah, those are the things I've been watching or listening to, and I've been having a good time, sir.
Nice.
And with that said, thank you everyone for watching, or not watching. I'll cut this out. Cut this out. All right. Getting serious. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to the Summit Up podcast. We will see you next week. And everyone, welcome back to work. I know it sucks. Holidays are over. Right, John?
It's 2020.
It's 2020. And I do not have the vision to see how well Birds of Prey is going to do.
It's 2020 and I'm still blind, Chris.
Me and you both. Blinded by the light. All right. Everyone have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.